All right, Colts Nation, buckle up. It is Friday. You know what that means. It means we're approaching Sunday, and it means that we need to get ourselves ready for an action-packed, exciting game that means so much at home, Lucas Oil Stadium, against the Tennessee Titans, okay? And I know that we're all disappointed, and we're all reeling from the last week of action and that loss against the Broncos, and to even have a snowball's chance in hell at making the playoffs, this team needs to win out. But nonetheless, it starts this week. Ultimately, if you're talking about winning out for a chance at the playoffs, Titans this week, Jaguars the week after that, and then the Giants. Not for anything, not to get too excited, not to get delusional, but if you're trying to win out, it doesn't get much better than that, right? I think we could agree on that point right there. Now, we, of course, can turn this into an actual game preview for the Colts versus the Titans. After all, it's an absolutely riveting game that the entire NFL fan base of all shapes and sizes are looking forward to. But do I really need to give you the matchups and the key stats and all that type of thing to let you know that the Titans fucking stink? Do I really need to go through all that to let you know that the Colts have absolutely no excuse to lose this game to this team this week at all? The fact that the Colts should beat the Tennessee Titans and come out of this game, I believe, 7-8, if I'm not mistaken, if they are to beat these Tennessee Titans. Do I need to go through all the mumbo jumbo and pretend that we should actually care and really look at this Titans game so carefully? Or should we talk about what this thing actually is? And ultimately, we're not here to talk about the playoffs for the Indianapolis Colts. We're not here to talk about a critical matchup against the Tennessee Titans. What we're here to talk about, or really what this season is at this point, is an opportunity for Anthony Richardson to get some reps. He has an opportunity to do that against some poor teams, right? So perhaps he strings together a few good performances, builds up some confidence, builds up some momentum into the offseason, and kind of gives this fan base a reason to be excited. And not just Anthony Richardson, but we really have tryouts kind of across the roster. That's the nature of what it is. As much as these games are not important for us, like for the Colts as a whole in terms of this season, in terms of the guys out there playing, they're still very critical games. So when I say tryouts, I guess more precisely what I mean is this is a chance for us to evaluate this roster and kind of look at what it is that we need to do to bolster this thing going into next season and going into this offseason. You look right now, some expiring contracts that are key for the Indianapolis Colts looking ahead to the offseason. Ryan Kelly, Julian Blackmon, EJ Speed, who is out against the Titans, Dio and Dangbo. These are guys right now that play a critical role for this team, and it's kind of a question mark as to whether or not they're going to be back with this team next year. So as opposed to making this a true game preview, what I want to do is actually talk about some of the things that I'm watching for as this season goes on, which of course has everything to do with this game as well. But before we get into it, you know what it is. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. As always, I ask anyone watching on YouTube and enjoying the show, go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We're trying to get to 3,000 by the end of the season. There's about 100 left on the subscriber count to hit that milestone. We can get there. Perhaps if the Colts do anything worthwhile, it'll push the page out to more people. Audio listeners, leave a 5-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying it. But most importantly, let's talk about our beloved, exciting, absolutely hope-invoking Colts. And of course, we're watching for Anthony Richardson, right? Do I really even need to say that? Is there anything insightful about it? We're trying to see if he could gain some level of consistency. We like what he brings, one in terms of not just his escapability from a speed standpoint, but I'm not sure there's many guys in the league that are harder to sack than Anthony Richardson. It's really some special stuff, the way he's able to do that. And I think when he's on, he's on. But when he's off, it's really, really bad. Can we get some consistency against teams like the Titans, the Jaguars, and the Giants? If we can't, we're going to have some interesting conversations this offseason in terms of, and I think we really need to have them anyway, do we need, and I brought this up towards the back end of last episode for those of you guys who were there and made it that far in, do we need some sort of pivot plan for Anthony Richardson. Not to say we would give up on him or anything like that. Not to say that he would lose the job for no reason whatsoever, even though I think, as much as I love the guy, he's given plenty of reason for people to not be optimistic about him. Would the Colts need some sort of hedge or pivot plan, something reasonable, nothing like a first-round quarterback, but something they could look at that is a guy behind Anthony Richardson that they can kind of develop in the meantime and perhaps fall back onto? Lord forbid something goes wrong with the guy that is Anthony Richardson and presumably our starter for next season and perhaps at least next season, right? So Anthony Richardson's consistency and development, we're going to keep watching for that. We're going to find reasons to be positive about it. We're going to get mad at some of the things he does wrong. We're going to get happy when he does something really good. That's just the nature of the beast. Of course, we're going to always be watching Anthony Richardson. That goes without saying, but I said it anyway. Kind of some more specific stuff or some more interesting stuff, I guess. Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr. These are two guys that this team are heavily invested in right now, neither of which have done a particularly good job, at least in terms of living up to those contracts this season. Now, of course, it's overall been a rough year for the Colts offense, and we just had a conversation about maybe who is to blame for some of that. And if you want to hear about it, you can go ahead and watch that last episode. But you look right now and you say, okay, Michael Pittman, one thing, we know he's kind of been banged up all year. And when you talk about production from him, I mean, he's on pace to have the least amount of targets he's had since his rookie season. I mean, you look at the past 3 years. 2021, he had 129 targets. 2022, he had 141 targets. And then last year, 156 targets. Right now, only 88 targets. I know he's missed a game or two this year. But even on those targets, he's been less successful with those targets than ever before. Now, is that Michael Pittman's fault or is it the quality of those targets? That's up for you to determine. Overall, I think you pretty much have an idea of the answer to that question if you're being 100% honest with yourself. But given all of those things, I'm kind of going to give Michael Pittman Jr. somewhat of a pass on the lack of production this year. Again, due to how banged up he has been, I think a lot of players wouldn't even be playing, quite frankly, particularly after getting paid. So credit to Michael Pittman Jr. on that front. But also, I just think right now, the quarterback situation not really conducive to consistent production out of the wide receiver position as a whole. So with that, that's what I have to say about Michael Pittman Jr. Jonathan Taylor, I think the more interesting one. Of course, right now, everyone talking about him dropping the ball against the Broncos, and that is what it is. But ultimately, he's been inconsistent as a whole this season for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I've been on record saying, as much as I like Shane Steichen, I'm not sure right now if Jonathan Taylor fits like a glove into the offense that Shane Steichen is running. Or in other words, I think Jonathan Taylor much better as a downhill runner, a la, a pistol formation, an I formation, single back, et cetera, something where he could get ahead of steam as he's running towards the line of scrimmage, as opposed to something like the shotgun formation where it's a little bit more lateral movement. He hasn't been quite as consistent running in that role, and it has been kind of just over and over again this season. JT was still able to produce him and Zach Moss at a high level last year, really JT towards the end of the season as he got healthy, because a lot of times with Gardner Minshew Jr., you were getting a little bit more. Of course, they were doing a bit of shotgun, but you were able to get some stuff under center with him. This year, not as much, and I think Jonathan Taylor has, really been hurt production-wise from that. Not hurt physically, I'm talking his production has been hurt from that. These are 3 games he should be able to produce despite all of that, even though you look at the Titans and say you have Jeffrey Simmons, you have Devondre Sweat, 2 good run stoppers. Ultimately, these teams not good enough to stop the Colts over the course of a day if the Colts are doing what they should be doing. We'll see how that goes. But Jonathan Taylor, you kind of got to look at in this sense. I know we paid him and all of that, but is there a need maybe in the offseason to bring, listen, I liked Trey Sermon quite a bit coming into the year. That doesn't seem to be the answer in terms of a guy that could come in and really provide you a spark as a spellback. Is there room to bring in someone that would perhaps take just a little bit of a load off JT because of their productivity? I don't know. But I think Jonathan Taylor, we're going to have to see what he does in these last few games, because I think not that they're going to replace him in the offseason, but can they draft someone? Can they bring someone in that they feel maybe fits the system a little bit better? Maybe. I don't know. And then I'm also going to be looking at the secondary, of course. We have, Laitu Latu as well. Not that he's in the secondary, but let me just toss him in there. This is kind of an impromptu game preview I'm really, again, talking big picture Colts here, as you can tell. The secondary, particularly Juju Brents, working back. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week, but we're going to see him before the end of the season. You look at that group right now, and you say, okay, well, we've got Samuel Womack, we've got Jalen Jones, and we've got Juju Brents coming in. Those are three guys that I think have potential to be pieces for this secondary for the future. Jalen Jones, of course. Samuel Womack, I thought, came in and did real well. But Juju Brents, you got to stay on the field. You just got to stay on the field. That goes without saying. But can those guys be three guys that we look at and say, hey, we have a core here. We could just add one person to this room. Now, whether or not we will add someone to this room is besides the point. I'm just talking about our discussion, okay? Can Jalen Jones, Samuel Womack, and Juju Brents be the core, right? Because the situation the Colts find themselves in right now at the secondary and have found themselves in all season, which was pretty predictable, all things considered, is that not only did every guy need to stay healthy, but everyone needed to stay healthy and play to the best of their ability just for this room to be serviceable, right? To be serviceable. If they can go into the offseason and get one more guy, now you look and say, okay, they can afford an injury here. They can afford an injury there. Not everyone has to be perfect every single week. You can raise the floor of this corner room, but it does start with Juju Brents, which is the point of me bringing that up. Can he prove that he is kind of a part of this thing and a part of the picture and a part of our future on defense? That's going to be something that we watch for as he makes his return, whether it is this week, next week, or anything of the sort. But, I mean, that's kind of all there is to talk about with this game. The Colts should win. I'm not really interested in the specifics of how it happens. The Titans are pretty bad at football. Let's see if this Colts team can start to build some momentum. This is the game where it starts. But until next time, my name is Justin. This right here was the Ryan the Bench Colts podcast. And as always, go Colts.